I don't know where it came from. Something came into my head. There's just a voice that said, John, today is the day you find out what money is. After taking that step, I lived through that day, and maybe you remember it. There was a day where Bitcoin dropped 50%. During that time, I had to make the decision, am I in or am I out? And at that moment, I said, well, I'm in to the end, because this system isn't going to last forever. And it's falling apart, as we know. The IMF is just an evil business at the end of the day. They're not here to help you and help the world, and they just want to own you. And then they're happy for you to default again. And then when you default, they go, okay, well, now that shipping port belongs to us. Now the power grid belongs to us. Now all these buildings belong to us. And for them, it's just a game. My mission has always been circular economy 2.0. We got to get it to the next level. So like what's in place now is amazing. Like it's astonishing, to be honest. But we got to get it to the next level now. We got to get it into the billions of dollars. And if we don't do that, we don't even want to think about those circumstances.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Sovereign Mindset. Today, got a great show for you. I got an entrepreneur here located in El Salvador, Mr. Jon Byrne, and we're going to talk about his journey here to El Salvador and the startup that he's building called BitTasker. John, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Mike, awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been a vision of mine to be here, to sit here opposite you one day and do this. So, man, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here.
Yeah.
So let's get started with your journey. What brought you here to El Salvador?
Well, I've been here now since November. I came here with my wife. So we've been living in Australia together for the last 20 years. I've lived all around the world, but Australia is where I've been the last 20 years. I've been a Bitcoiner now for, I don't know, since 2017. So I've been watching El Salvador for a very long time. I've been watching you guys, watching everything that's been happening here. And in November, we decided to sell the house and come here on a one-way ticket.
Wow.
Yeah.
One-way ticket from Australia. And what was that journey like? What was the decision to do that like?
Yeah, well, it took a long time to get here, you know. We didn't just wake up one day and say we want to come here. So we knew for years that we wanted to come here, but we had to wrap up our life there. So obviously it's you can't do that overnight. I mean, we had another business there, we had other things going on, and we had assets to dispose of and get rid of the house, get rid of the cars, and that type of stuff. So it took us about actually 2 years, you know, to wrap all that up, to get out of there and actually get here. But like, I mean, I've wanted to get here for a very long time. So yeah, so we just did it in November, and here we are.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how has the journey here been? How has the transition been? You've been able to kind of come here and make yourself at home, or has it been, what was that whole process like?
I mean, I have I was under no illusions before coming here. I mean, I've lived all around the world. I've worked in international trade for a long time, including living in Africa for 10 years. Did a lot of business in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos. So I already know what the second and the third world is like. So because I have experience in it, so I was under no illusions coming here. So I wasn't that surprised. But obviously coming here, it's challenging. You know, you're in a new place. You're kind of lost for a while. It takes a bit of time to, you know, find out where you want to stay, where you want to eat, who you want to hang out with. You know, what you like, what you don't like, and that type of thing. So overall, look, we're still settling down. To be honest, you know, we're still deciding where we want to be. You know, we have some preferences, you know, preferably in the mountains or something like that is kind of speaking to us at the minute. And, you know, that plan can change, but right now that's how it's looking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you come here and you immediately get to work building your startup, or did this idea come to you later on? What was the process of figuring out what you want to do here?
Yeah, I mean, like the reason I came here because I wanted to be part of the mission. You know, I have to be part of this mission. So obviously, El Salvador is the best place in the world to do that.
And real quick, what do you define that mission as?
Well, it's mission Bitcoin, right? So, I mean, for me, Bitcoin is it's like what John Dennehy says. I'm a big fan of his, and he said like he's openly an activist, right? So the Bitcoin mission is an activist movement against the globalists in the world. It's against the uneven spread of power and wealth in the world, and the only known antidote in the world to that is Bitcoin. So I'm very passionate about that, especially traveling the world, living in Africa, seeing how uneven the wealth in the world is spread around. So you know, Bitcoin is the only tool that we have to do something about it. And ultimately, that's what the mission is for me, is to try and be part of bringing some positive change in the world.
Yeah. And so then that's what put El Salvador on the radar for you, was the fact that they made Bitcoin legal tender here and kind of adopted the whole ethos. And you were like, hey, let's get over there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bitcoin, I mean, El Salvador, in terms of the entire world, in terms of what's actually happening and what activity there is and how many people are actually committed to the mission, and other entrepreneurs and other people, like, trying to accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin. I mean, it was an easy choice to come to El Salvador.
And let's get into your background then. Like, what have you always been an entrepreneur? Did you just kind of have this idea when you got here?
I've been an entrepreneur since I was a child. So when I'm from Ireland originally. So I've spent 20 years of my life. I'm 50 now, almost 50. And I spent 20 years of my life in Ireland. I've spent 10 years of my life in South Africa. I spent 20 years of my life in Australia. So, and I've lived around little small stints in Sweden and Thailand and that type of thing. So, so from the age of 5 or 6, I was that kid going around knocking on people's doors, going, hey, do you have any empty Coke bottles? Do you have any tasks for me to do? Can I cut the grass for you? Can I clean your windows? And that type of thing. Because I never, like, from a very young age, even in my Montessori school days, it was very obvious that this system that set out in life wasn't really for me, because I didn't feel like I wanted to be proud of it. So from a very young age, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I started off, my early career in sales roles, and worked my way up into sales manager in the corporate world, and up to sales director and that type of thing. And then eventually I branched out on my own, and I did all sorts of things. Mainly my background is in scrap plastics, waste, and recycling on the international stage. So I spent majority of my time, we had a trading company set up in Hong Kong, and we used to buy material from recycling companies all around the world. We used to put them in shipping containers and export them to Chinese and Indian factories that used to make stuff, like make cheap toys and products and that type of stuff from the materials that we used to stuff with them.
Awesome. And have you encountered challenges just here in El Salvador and building out BitTasker?
No, not really.
Compared to your previous journeys?
No, there's no challenges. I mean, there's some. I mean, we got other plans as well. There's other companies we want to build here. And like, a lot of people may or may not know this. I mean, I've seen some great stuff on your site where you had Jose from Legal Itica here, and I know him as well. And I've learned a lot about some of the exciting things you can do here in the tech space under the laws of innovation in the tokenization, DLT, and blockchain space. So there's amazing people here to help you set up in this space. And I'd encourage anybody to, if you have any ideas right around that, to seriously think about it, and seriously think about coming here and building something in that space.
Well, yeah, on that note, what do you think El Salvador needs, just from your time being here? What do you think needs to happen here in order to kind of build up this country?
We have to grow the economy, bro. We have to. So I mean, there's been a refinance recently with the IMF loan, right? It's caused a lot of controversy and misunderstanding. And when you take a deep dive into that, you'll actually realize that loan was already in place, before the current government came in here. And they've had to top it up because they didn't have the funds to make the repayment. And them not having the funds to make the repayment is just somewhere where you don't want to go with the IMF, especially being an Irishman. The IMF came into my country and did a lot of terrible things there. I'm not a fan of them at all, but the reality is they're here, and they were here before the current government came along. And now they've taken a top-up loan that's put them in some like dangerous territory where there's now penalties. There's an extra 2% and 3% interest payments due on that loan. And there's like $500 million worth of interest due on that loan, that has to be paid, So that money has to come from somewhere, right? That extra $500 million has to come out of this economy. So the mission, we have to grow the economy here. So if it doesn't grow, we don't even want to think about what that means for us. So how are we going to do it? Right. So that has to come from outside. People from outside of here have to come here. So like Bitcoiners, especially, like the Bitcoin market cap, the last time I looked was $1.7 trillion. That's a lot of Bitcoin, right? And the loan here is only a couple of $1 billion. And there's probably Bitcoiners in the world that have that type of money. They could come here tomorrow and pay off the loan. So like my mission has always been, like I say it a lot, like circular economy 2.0. We got to get it to the next level. So like what's in place now is amazing. Like it's astonishing, to be honest, that it's even here. When I first came here and I went to Selectos and bought something with Bitcoin, I nearly wet the bed. It was like so exciting to actually be able to do it, But we got to get it to the next level now. We got to get it into the billions of dollars to make this country successful. And if we don't do that, we don't even want to think about those circumstances.
Yeah. So then what has been your impression being here and seeing Bitcoin, and has it met your expectations?
Yeah, 100%, man.
Mm.
Like I, as I said, I was under no illusions of what was happening here. You know, the greatest thing that I've seen here is showing that Bitcoin works as a technology, that we can actually use it as a tech. It has a long way to go to be an amazing currency, right? Because it's still very volatile. You know, for example, if you're a business here in El Salvador and you're only operating on Bitcoin, and you know, you're working, like most businesses now work on low margins, 10, like the old days it was 50% margins, you know, when I was a young fella. But now it's like some are 5, 10, 20%. So if you're taking everything in Bitcoin, and that's what you've taken in for the month, and the price of Bitcoin drops 15, 20% in a month, that's very difficult as a business, because you need cash flow, right? Cash flow is king,
Yeah.
in any business. So like I think it's a great tool to have, to be able to have the option in the business, but just Bitcoin only businesses, until we grow the market cap of Bitcoin out of the 1.7 trillion up to hundreds of trillions. It's very difficult from a business point of view to use it as a currency. But technologically, it works really well, and it should be there, and everybody should have the offer or the option for people that want to pay in Bitcoin, because those people are around. Like, lots of people only want to pay with Bitcoin, and that's cool, you know. But in terms of what we've seen here already and what's in place, there's no reason we can't go and take that to companies here and go and get the integration. Like, we learn the language, learn how to speak the language, go and talk to some of those companies, especially now, because there's a lot of focus on taxing the small entrepreneurs here in this country, because this $500 million that has to come from somewhere, right? So like all these small entrepreneurs that you see around that are operating in a tax-free environment, there's a lot of pressure on businesses to report on them and understand who they are, and actually get them banked or get them into the system so they can tax them, you know? So Bitcoin also helps with that, you know, because it is a focus here, and it does help bring companies into that space. It does help get the entrepreneurs, the small entrepreneurs, into the system, and get Bitcoin circulating more in the country.
Yeah. And then, as far as your journey into Bitcoin, what has that looked like? What made you a Bitcoiner? And when did you kind of take the orange pill?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I took it back in 2017. One day, I don't know where it came from. Something came into my head, and there's just a voice that said, "John, today is the day you find out what money is." I think I was sitting in traffic somewhere.
The voice of Satoshi.
The voice of Satoshi. Yeah. Ooh, right. Maybe it was. I don't know. But one day I was in the car, sitting in traffic, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I was just like, you know, what the fuck am I doing? You know, what is this shit? So right. And I said, why don't I know this? You know. And then I went down and I said, right, today's the day. And I went onto YouTube, and the first thing I found, and this was a similar thing a lot of people found, and it was Mike Maloney, you know, The Hidden Secrets of Money, episode 4, you know. And if anybody hasn't watched that, I highly recommend you do. And at that time, it was called The Greatest Scam in the History of Mankind. That was the name of the vid. And I think he changes it now. Like he changes the name to try and, you know, be coherent to what's happening in current times, you know. But at that time, it was called The Greatest Scam in the History of Mankind. And then I actually learned about fiat, about the world, about money printing, fractional reserve banking, and that type of thing. And I was just astonished. I just, it was like someone taking a bag off my head, you know, and just like, I couldn't believe that this was what was going on, you know. And then the voice says, well, what were you expecting to find, you know? And then the journey began, you know, and obviously at that time I was working in international trade. So I had a lot of experience with payments and operating in the SWIFT system and sending money to people all around the world and that type of thing, and having delays and problems with money coming through and bank fees and that type of thing. So it just sent me on down the rabbit hole, like as most of us go. And I went quite deep on it. You know, I went all the way into learning about M1, M2, M3 money, the overnight money markets, you know, the Fed funds rate, the Federal Open Market Committee. I went really deep to really, I became a disciple of it. And eventually, you know, when I fully learned it, like I then said, I need to be out of this, because this system isn't going to last forever. and it's falling apart, as we know. And then eventually I just went all in. I just took that step. I came back to my wife. At that time we had superannuation, which is just like standard Australian 401k IRA type of fund. And I came back to my wife and said, guess what we're doing? And she said, what? I said, well, we're gonna liquidate all that and we're gonna put it all in Bitcoin. And she said, are you mad? And I said, yeah, maybe a little bit, right? So, but we're gonna do this anyway. And that was the first time I did it. So for me, taking that step, there's no turning back, and I thought I was the smartest guy in the world from doing that. But, after taking that step, I lived through that day. And maybe you remember it. There was a day where Bitcoin dropped 50% in one day. So I lived through that, and I sat there and I watched it. And during that time, I had to make the decision, am I in or am I out? And at that moment, I said, well, I'm in to the end, right?
Do you think that Bitcoin has kind of transformed your mindset, your state of being?
Yeah, it still is. Yeah, it still is. So without a doubt, I mean, it kind of points you to ask questions about everything that you know, right? And it's done that. So I went, okay, well, if this is a load of shit, what else is a load of shit? And then you start opening up other rabbit holes, and then you start discovering that you've been living most of your life not really knowing much about anything. You're just in it. You're just in it. You're going hard. You're trying to keep up with the other guy. You're just trying to get through it. You're just trying to survive it. And then you start realizing, you start realizing a lot about yourself. So then you go on your own journey of discovery, and then you start becoming who you really are, and new things come into your life, and things come out, and that's still happening. That's a continuous journey with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so most of your time is focused on BitTasker. Is that right?
Yeah, we have other projects. We got 2 other projects that we're working on, but BitTasker is the priority right now. So yeah.
Cool. And what would you say for people interested in El Salvador and seeing what the opportunities are here? Would you say to come down here and look, or what's your advice to people?
It depends what you want in life, So for me personally, the great thing about being here is hanging out with cool people. That's the main thing, So there's lots of really cool people here. There's lots of people on the similar mission. There's people that want to bring this positive change into the world. There's many people on this journey in various stages, from the beginning of their Bitcoin journey to hardcore toxic Bitcoin maxis. So you'll find them all here, and there's great community. There's great people. It's not hard here, right? But you have to be realistic. It's going to be foreign to you. It's going to be different to what you know. So there will be some challenges, but there's lots of people here to help you with it. So just get here.
Yeah. It's El Salvador, I see it as kind of a shelling point for people that kind of think outside the box and want to be mission oriented and want to actually build and make an impact on the world. Now that you said we have this tool, we have the ability to do so. And it seems like this country is one of the only countries in the world that is allowing people to kind of build in that way.
Yeah, well, like majority, there's some people here, and it's okay. It depends where you are in life, So there's lots of people here that have just retired. They've got a nice stack of Bitcoin. They live down in El Zonte. They have a hammock. They take it easy. They go surf every day. They're not here for the war, so to speak, and that's cool, And not everybody has to be here for the war, but I find that there is a lot of people here like that are here for the mission, and it's very energizing when you get in the same room with them, when you start collaborating and you start finding ways to work together. You find out you're not alone, and a lot of us have been very alone in life, stuck in this system and running around with all these questions in our head. And then when we start waking up and discovering, everything is a pile of shit, it's quite disturbing for your own inward journey, and it's quite disturbing for, how your relationship that are already in place with non-coiners, such as family and friends and that type of thing. So it could be like, all of a sudden you say to your friend, hey, you ever heard of this thing called Bitcoin? They've never heard of it, and then you start talking about the journey that Bitcoin takes you on. And then that kind of starts to cause a little bit of separation with them, including your own family as well. So when you come here, you find that it's very easy to get along with people. People have been through the same thing. They know what it's like. And, it's, you can quickly get on a level with people here to start talking about Bitcoin and the mission.
Yeah. That's a topic that I don't think is discussed enough. It's kind of like once you become aware of just the intricacies of the system and kind of how I want to say evil, how corrupt they are or corrosive they
it's
are.
evil as fuck, man.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And you know, that impacts you in a real fundamental way, changes your whole psychology and your state of being. And, you know, I think a lot of people have been through that journey. And then how do you interact with people who are still inside that mindset? And especially when they're really close to you and you care about them. And like, you know, it could be very frustrating navigating that space because you just want to show them the truth. And in a lot of ways, they're resistant to it because, you know, once you wake up to it, it's disorienting.
Yeah.
Like you got to re-examine everything, like like you've alluded to a couple times. And it's like, well, you know, how do you navigate that in a way that's tactful and that you're not like burning bridges to people that you actually care about?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, most Bitcoiners you speak to, that they can share some pain in that space. It's very difficult. You know, I'm still going through that. A lot of people are. Some people in my family are slowly coming around to it, you know, because I've been like pumping this for like 7 years. You know, like I say to the young people in my family, I'm an uncle for something like 25 people around the world, a big typical Irish family, kids everywhere. It's like a small army of us, you know, and those 25 people have got like 10 kids between them. And I'm always trying to, hey, can you just download a wallet? Can I just zap some stats to your kid? And that's it. I don't want to talk. I'm not going to try and tell you about why this is so great. I just want your kids to have some sats, man. You know, that's it. And some of them are very open to that, and slowly but surely they come around. And then some of them that have come around, they've actually said, hey, John, you know what? You were right. You were right about all these things. I didn't listen. I was arrogant. I should have listened to you. I should have gone into Bitcoin a long time ago. So when you hear things like that, it makes it worthwhile to keep going. You know, and it helps alleviate some of the suffering that you've had to go through with that.
Well, I think also, you know, another approach is exactly what you're doing. It's like, okay, I'm going to onboard people, but I'm going to onboard them through necessity, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm going to create this platform where you join the platform and you're going to find it useful.
Yeah.
And through that, you know, there might be an education component that you attach to this
Absolutely.
as well.
Great idea. Yeah. There absolutely is. Like personally, I'm very sensitive to the extreme poverty here, right? So, and I lived in Africa as well. I've seen extreme poverty. I've seen extreme poverty all around the world. And the reality is, I mean, you know, getting back to what I said earlier about the IMF loan and the financial instability in the central bank here, right? It's very dangerous. It's at very dangerous lows. A lot of people don't realize that loan that the IMF have just taken, and as I said, fuck the IMF, but unfortunately it's here, right? I'm not a fan of the IMF. I just want to be clear with that. But half of the loan that the government's just had to take here, half of that actually has gone in to top up the reserves of the central bank here, because the reserves are dangerously low. And that's another big reason why big companies haven't come and said, I mean, some big companies have, like Nestle and Google and things like that are here, but not enough, right? And a big reason why they haven't done that is because if you're like a $30-40 billion company and you need a financial system here to support you, right? Bitcoin can be part of it, but Bitcoin is still growing, right? We're still evolving. But in terms of the fiat system that's here, the reserves in the central banking system here are dangerously low, very, very dangerously low. So now with this new loan that's coming, that's actually going to increase the reserves to make it more attractive for these big players to come in. But in the meantime, we're on the US dollar here, right? And we all know what's happening with money printing and the continuous rise in inflation that's being exported to El Salvador. And then when you actually look at the amount of people here that are in extreme poverty, it's quite alarming how many are. And when you go and spend some time in the communities where they live and you look at how they live and the lifestyle that they have, or you go into like a local town, you look at the local hospitals and you see people are queuing up like in circles of queues around the hospital there just to get in to get some basic care, because they're living in these terrible conditions that's not good for their health, right? So part of the mission is to help these people, is to do something for them, you know. And like part of what we want to do as well, we're actually going to build a small home for a poor family here. That's part of our mission. We're dedicated to doing that. So right now, right, we're kind of putting it out there that we want to actually find some family that really needs just a small, simple home, somebody that's living in a shack or in a tin hut, as you know, and actually build it for them and actually give it to them, right? And then that will help us reach out into that community as well. So that we can help them understand Bitcoiner, BitTasker. We can that can also help them come out of the swamps just to get up to some basic quality of life here, because there's two sides to El Salvador. There's the extreme wealthy, as you know, there's the extreme wealth here, but the extreme poverty is quite bad here. So that touches my heart. I need to do something about that. As a human, I feel called that I must do something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit then about the geopolitical situation here? I mean, it sounds like you scratched the surface there, but like, how do you see Bukele as a leader here? What do you see as the future of El Salvador?
Yeah.
Do you think that in terms of maneuvering through this IMF loan and them being here, do you think that El Salvador comes out the other end, in a better state?
Yeah. Well, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the IMF's bad news. They want you to default. I mean, to give you an example, I mean, I'm not sure if you remember the Celtic tiger in Ireland. Remember going back in the 2000s, there was a boom. Like our family left Ireland because we were like probably borderline second world country. At the time, unemployment was ridiculously high. Income tax was ridiculously high. So our family emigrated out of Ireland. We actually went to South Africa. That's how bad it was. And there wasn't much hope there. And then while we were away, voila, who rocks up? The European Union and the IMF, and they gave all the money to the country, and they lent money to the government, and they lent money to all the banks. And then there was a boom. The country just went from zero to the boom was crazy. It was insane. And that brought a lot of change to the country. It brought a lot of change to people as well, And eventually what happened was that the country defaulted on the loan because they mismanaged it. And they mismanaged it for various reasons, right? But the main thing is that the IMF come and structure these loans in a way where you fail. They want you to fail. I mean, there's great books out there, Confessions of an Economic Hitman and things like that, where you can learn about this stuff, right? And why do they want you to fail? Because when you fail, they get everything, right? So when you can't pay the loan, so just look at Argentina, for example, right? So when you can't make the repayment on your loan, they're happy to give you another loan, right? Because it's fiat, it's money that doesn't really exist, right? So they're happy to give you another loan and trap you in further. And then they're happy for you to default again. And then when you default, they go, okay, well, now that shipping port belongs to us. Now the power grid belongs to us, right? Now the airport belongs to us. Now all these buildings belong to us. And for them, it's just a game. It's just a business of how they can get your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like they use loans as a weapon to take over parts of the economy.
Yeah.
Not only that, but parts of the government as well.
Absolutely.
And impose their will and basically erode the sovereignty of nations.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, like in Ireland, for example, there's lots of my family that live there. So during this boom time from the IMF money, they went and got a loan that they shouldn't have got. They actually shouldn't have got the loan, but there wasn't enough controls in place at the time to make sure that banks were being more, I suppose, diligent on who they loan money to. They'd loan money to anybody. And people went down and bought houses because there's like a housing boom, like very similar to the housing price. Like I think the property prices here are in extreme bubble. They're in bubble territory.
Here in El Salvador.
In El Salvador. They're in extreme bubble territory right now. And I've seen this before in Ireland where people went down and bought properties, and then things got bad in Ireland. The economy collapsed, the country went bankrupt, and now people that went out and bought something for, let's say, 500,000 or whatever, those same properties are now worth 200,000. And now they're living in negative equity. They're actually trapped in the system because they took out a mortgage during this time and they can't make the repayments. So that's the way they work. So they make it in a way from the sovereign being on the street all the way through corporations, all the way through government. It's on purpose. The IMF is just an evil business at the end of the day. They're not here to help you and help the world and that type of thing. At the end of the day, they just want to own you. That's it.
And do you think that Bukele then can navigate this in a way that's successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, my own background in international trade, so that includes freight, logistics, shipping, etc. So in order to get things here, you have to improve the infrastructure. Right? Because like if you look at how things, like some stuff that gets here actually gets delivered in ships to Honduras, right? And then it gets driven all the way here, right? And that's not efficient, I mean, there is some shipping ports here. The main one is in Acajutla, but like there's limits to what can come into that port. As you know now, they're expanding the ports in the east of the country. They're expanding they're building a new airport there in La Union. They're putting things in place here in the central bank. Like I said, they're increasing the reserves. So if you look at all the things that he's doing all the right things to put the structure in place to make this happen. I think he bet on Bitcoiners, right? So if you look at like Chivo, for example, and the IMF loan that was in place, like you have to remember that when he took government, that loan was already there, and there was a lot of, like, I remember, a lot of people might remember, there was a lot of talks about El Salvador defaulting on that loan. And they didn't default because he got the money from somewhere. And the money he got from somewhere was from the Central American, I think it's the Intermediate Bank is what it's called. And he borrowed $500 million from that bank. And he took half of the money, he paid off the IMF loan, so he didn't default. And then the other half of the money, he set up Chivo. So he bought all the ATMs, the Chivo company, gave the $30 to everybody. And then he put the infrastructure in place here for it to happen. And it did happen, but it didn't happen in the way he expected. That's my take on it, right? So he said, hey, Bitcoiners, like, come here, bring the trillions of dollars, bring hundreds of billions of dollars of the Bitcoin, bring it here and do stuff with it, right? And I mean, we all know what happened with Chivo, right? It wasn't a great rollout, and there's problems with the tech, and that's another story. But and he put the Bitcoin law in place, and he opened up the doors. He says, hey, Bitcoiners, come here, bring your money here into this country and help the country rise up. So that's what I mean about circular economy 2.0, right? I think what he's doing now is beautiful to make that happen, to make it more attractive because there's some big Bitcoiners around the world. They can just come out, hey, bro, there's your $2 billion. Tell the IMF to fuck off. Right? They're around, but they're not here. But they need to start getting here now. The bigger, wealthier, Bitcoiners need to come here now and be part of this mission.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how that rolls out.
Yeah.
I mean, Tether's coming here, right? Yeah. And Jan 3 has a presence here, and so the foundations of bigger companies coming here to make an impact are starting to reveal themselves.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if that like catches momentum and really starts transforming the economy here.
I think so. So another project that we're working on that's separate to BitTasker. Right. So another one we're working on is in the LUSDT space and the tokenization space under the laws of innovation. Because what that does is that's open. I mean, for example, there's some commercial real estate here that was actually funded through tokenization, right? There's companies here in place that are already approved through CNAD, the digital agencies at the Digital Asset Agency of El Salvador. And there's a regulator here for this LUSDT space and tokenization that also includes a network what is LBTC, right? So we don't like, personally, USDT, okay, do I like it or not? Not really, okay, I prefer Bitcoin. But the reality is this is kind of leaning towards like Tether country at the moment, but Bitcoin's still here. The country still has a Bitcoin treasury, right? And with the laws of innovation, which basically means if you set up companies in this space and you use the blockstream covenants and smart contracts, you can do amazing things here. And that's something that I will come back and talk about that another day. And we're about to open up another company here in that space that qualifies for 15 years tax-free. That also includes any technology that we want to import here for our business is also tax-free. And it's in the tokenization space of the LUSDT stroke Bitcoin arena. And so, at the end of the day, the goal is for Bitcoin to win. So sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do to make that win. You got to, in Australia, we got this saying, right? Say, sometimes you got to fuck with the dick that you got. That's the only dick that you got, right?
Yeah.
Sorry for that. Okay. But so it's the same. It's the same as what we have in El Salvador. The reality is this: it's not the Bitcoin Wild West country that we thought it was anymore. It's now Tether here in a big space. Tether opens up the doors for a lot of capital to come in here. It opens up the doors for the tokenization projects that include Bitcoin. I mean, the project that we're looking at is the actual currency of the ecosystem is LBTC, right? But the channel in is through LUSDT because it makes it easier to get money in here, to say to bigger players around the world, bigger Bitcoiners, and the many bigger Bitcoiners around the world, and get your ass here. Get here and be part of the mission because we need you here. And this Bitcoin world, if you go onto Nostr and you look at the culture that's on Nostr and you hear the I suppose the vibe coming from the hardcore toxic Bitcoin maxis. That's what they want, right? They're going, fuck the IMF, fuck the government, right? Bitcoin must win. But those guys need to get here, right? They need to get here. They need to bring their Bitcoin here, and they need to do stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about BitTasker. What's that about? And yeah, let us know more.
Yeah, cool. So BitTasker really it's an app in the gig economy, in the tasking space. So when I say tasking space, there's other apps around the world like the fiat powered apps, like such as Thumbtack, such as Airtasker, such as Angie's List, such as TaskerRabbit. And these apps are mainly there just to open up, I suppose, simple contracts or ways for people to do simple tasks for each other. So the tasks can be anything from something small, come to my office, I need someone to come to my office, clean the office for me, or I need someone to come to my office and install the microphones, or I need someone to come here and service my car, or I need someone to go to IKEA and buy some flat pack furniture and deliver it to me. I need someone to assemble the flat pack furniture for me, or I need someone to take away all the rubbish that comes in the packaging with the flat pack furniture. So it can be anything from anything. I mean, there's a guy I know in Australia that gave me the idea. He actually started a business in Airtasker, and his job was just picking up dog shit from people's gardens. And that actually grew into a full-blown construction company, because from doing that, he made contacts and he got a reputation for being reliable and that type of thing. So it's basically an app for anything, do anything for anybody, anywhere, and we can do the business in Bitcoin with each other, or we can do it in fiat.
Yeah, so it's a way to create a Bitcoin economy here, a kind of freelancer Bitcoin economy.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. I mean, the way I see things here in El Salvador, there's lots of great things happening. And like, I honor a lot of people who have been here before me for many years, putting things in place, orange pilling, stalls and shops and places where we can spend our Bitcoin, and setting up markets and finding ways to interact with each other and spend our Bitcoin. Because a lot of people only want to work with Bitcoin. They're Bitcoin maxis, and they only want to spend Bitcoin. They don't want to operate in the fiat world. So one of the challenges that I found here in El Salvador is, like, there's limits. There's limits of where we can spend Bitcoin, and it's great what's happening here already. But in terms of the mission of further adoption and making an impact, a real substantial impact on the economy here, and maybe making it more, attractive for other Bitcoiners to come here. That's where the idea of BitTasker came from, because what that means is, we can open up channels to do anything with anybody here in anything that we want. So for example, if you're a Bitcoiner and you're traveling here to El Salvador and you have some skills, like where you can set up a website, or where you can build a cabinet for somebody's house, or you can do something like that, BitTasker is going to enable you to come here and find some work while you're here, to go and do some work for other Bitcoiners, expats that already live here, and even the locals that are here as well. It'll enable you to open up some channels to them as well, and it'll also help increase the adoption of Bitcoin, and it'll also help the integration of Bitcoiners with locals here. I mean, like, what we find here in El Salvador, a lot of people here don't have skills to do things. And we kind of learn how that works, because especially like where we live down on the beach in San Blas, the area is kind of like territorial from the people that can actually do work for people. And somehow they got some way how they're managing that. I'm not too sure. And kind of like the mindset here, which is very similar to like the caste system in India or China in particular, they like to keep people oppressed, And what we found is, just people to have simple skills. So for example, if there is a guy that in El Salvador that can come to your house and fix stuff, he's going to rock up with a crew of 2 or 3 guys. But those 2 or 3 guys can't do anything. All that they can do is pass the screwdriver or make him a coffee or go to the car and but the one guy can. And then that guy is like driving like a $60,000, $70,000 pickup, or like $5,000 wheel. Like, you see these guys, like when you go to select those, and you go, yeah, where's this guy getting the money to drive this car? So what we figured out is that they were oppressing people, and they don't help them rise up. So part of something we want to do with BitTasker, we're still finalizing a few things that we want to do, but there's 2 things that we're definitely going to do. And one is we're going to train people how to install nodes, right? Because the government here has come out and said, hey, we want to try and make sure that every house here in El Salvador has a Lightning node in it, right? So we want to try and train some local people how to set up a node. So anybody here in El Salvador can go onto BitTasker and go, I want someone to come to my house and install a node for whatever the price is. And then we've trained local people here how to do that. We've given them the skills to do that, and they can go there and do the work. And then another thing is, sorry, you want to say something?
No, I'll finish my thought after you finish.
Okay, yeah. So then another thing is to train people how to do stuff. So for example, we just got a fly screen door installed in our house, and it was kind of comical watching it. The guy was in this $80,000 pickup, and he had to come back 3 times, and it's still shit, right? So part of what we want to do is those 3 people that were with him, we want to maybe set up a bit of a workshop with other Bitcoiners. So we're kind of reaching out to other Bitcoiners here that have facilities, have some land, or have a venue, and that type of thing, and building a little workshop. And then when we build a workshop, that's actually going to be built by BitTaskers. BitTaskers will build it. So we'll break the workshop down to like maybe 50 different tasks. We'll set up the tasks ourselves, and then we'll actually find people to come and build it through BitTasker. And then in that actual workshop, we're going to teach people how to install doors, something like that. So when they go looking for work, right, that one is to have the skill to do it, and then it will help a lot of people here that are oppressed to actually rise up, interact into Bitcoin, which will also accelerate the adoption with local Salvadorians.
Yeah. So 2 thoughts on that.
Yeah.
The first one is, it would be interesting if like BitTasker like gets bootstrapped with, people actually building out parts of the circular economy. Like your first, task that you have listed there are Bitcoiners who can go up and set up nodes in people's houses for people that want it.
Correct.
or help someone out with a hardware wallet, or even like go to their house and provide a free like educational seminar, or not free, but like some type of paid.
100%.
That would be interesting. And then the second thing is like, it sounds like also BitTasker is looking to empower the local economy as well through those workshops and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, so what I found in my own journey, I mean, I've spent a lot of time, I've been focusing and speaking to a lot of businesses here, business like El Salvadorians, right? And I've been trying to hear what they have to say about Bitcoin, because I was curious, to why isn't there more adoption outside of just the hardcore Bitcoiners that are here? And most of them said the same thing. They said they just don't understand it. Right? They don't know what it is, right? They're very curious. They'd like to know about it. And once you actually sit down and speak with them and they start to understand, especially business people, they actually really love it, So, BitTasker is going to be a great tool to try and, get more Bitcoiners here in front of local people here to try and spread the message and push the mission.
Yeah, it's another way of getting actual locals involved as well, when they can find out that a whole market is available to them.
Yeah.
And as far as I understand, it's not only Bitcoin that you're running the app on, they can also take fiat payments as well, right?
We can take fiat payments as well, preferably not,
Yeah.
But I mean, the main reason for that is it's to try and open up these channels that we just discussed, because, Bitcoiners will just want to spend Bitcoin, and that will be easy for them, and they won't have any reservations with that. But people that are new to the space or considering it, or, would like to find a way in without having to take the full plunge into Bitcoin, the fiat option is there for them. So we can, include them on this project.
So then let's get into the app a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm a freelancer.
Yeah.
I set up an account on there.
Yeah.
And someone posts that they want something done.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's like, hey, I need my groceries picked up or something like that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So I respond to that request.
Yeah.
And the conversation happens in the app.
In the app, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as payment is concerned, payment happens in the app as well.
Happens in the app. Yeah.
And you would be then custodying the funds and handling the transaction between the 2 individuals, right?
Yeah, correct. So what will happen there is, so like you said, somebody will respond to an ad, and that somebody will get a notification for an ad, because the person that's looking to do the work, they will set up some notifications in the app. So for example, if you're a guy that installs microphones, you can say every time somebody places a job that says install a microphone, or the word microphone or something like that, you'll actually get a notification on your phone that someone's posted an ad like that. So let's say there's 5 people that want that type of work. All of those people can reply to your ad, and they can say, hey, pick me because I'm good and I'm the best, and there's my price. So when you're posting the ad yourself as the person selling the task, you will typically post a price that you want to pay for the job. So for example, if you said, I want to pay $50 for someone to come and set up all my microphones, whatever, then 4 people might reply, And then one guy might say, hey, I'll do it for $30 or I'll do it for $35. And you should pick me because here's all my reviews of the previous work that I've done before. Other people I've worked with have said great things about me. And then you can open up that conversation with, in the group, but all the people looking to do the job with you. And then you as the person who's posted the task, you can then decide who you want to work with. And then a direct communication will open up between the two of you. And then you two can ask more questions. So you can ask more questions about him. Hey, are you really good at this? And or do you really have knowledge about installing microphones? You might ask some questions. Go, hey, where are you located? Are you in a difficult place to reach? Are you up the top of a mountain? Is the power there? And that type of thing. So you guys will go in and finalize the deal together, right? And then what will happen is that the actual funds, the question that you asked about the funds, when you actually post the task yourself, those funds go straight into an escrow account, right? So if it's fiat, it's through licensed banking services that we're setting up here in El Salvador. If it's in Bitcoin, it's going to go into a Bitcoin wallet. And what will happen is they will be held in escrow. The only person who has the power to release those funds is the actual person who's created the task.
Okay.
So that control will be in your hand. So the person will come to your place, they'll do the job for you. If you're satisfied with the work, you press a button and then the funds is released to them.
And so is there a reputation model then built in as well? Like people are going to get reviews and so forth in order to kind of evaluate whether somebody is, worthy or not of doing that task?
Yeah. Like, I mean, the app is going to reward you for a repeat business, right? Because like what happens in a lot of these apps, and everybody asks this question, they go, oh, listen, the app isn't going to work because the guy will come, he'll meet you, you'll make a contact, right? And then obviously you do the first job through the app, and then after that, he'll keep coming around and do other stuff for you, and he can pay you cash or outside of the app. It's the same as what a lot of people do, like with Upwork and Fiverr and things like. I mean, Upwork, for example. I mean, the app can also work for the way Upwork works, and Upwork takes 20% commission from people. It's a very, very high commission. So what a lot of devs do is they find people to work with through Upwork, and then they make the connection. And then after that, they go, hey, can you pay me a different way so I don't have to work through Upwork and that type of thing. But the actual app that we're building is going to reward you for repeat business because there's different commission layers, the commission tiers that the app will take from you. So if you have consistent work in a period of 30 days and you do a certain amount of jobs, we'll take less commission from you.
Interesting.
And then we'll also incentivize you to, for the repeat business, it'll be less commission for you. It'll increase your profile. It'll increase the profile of the person creating the job. And there'll be very, very low commission to try and incentivize you to do that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And how have you found the entrepreneurial space here in El Salvador? And specifically, how has your journey in building a business been here? Yeah.
I mean, there's so... The thing is, this country wants people to build stuff here, So, it's still a little bit slow, because they're kind of shifting off old analog towards the digital space. So you're kind of finding a mix of both, right? And, we have the business open now. We're actually, we're registered. We have a tax number here in El Salvador. That took a little longer than I thought, right? Because living in the modern world, you go online and you press a button and voila, you have a business number. But, that's not the way it is here, but that's definitely the way it's moving towards. And I think at some short period of time in the future, it's going to be very, very, very simple to make things easier for you to open businesses. But there's no shortage of people here that can help you with that sort of stuff. And their level of knowledge varies from very high to medium to very low. So there's lots of them here. That's easy to find. In terms of entrepreneurs and finding people to work, there's heaps of talented people here. There's some really, really smart people here that have all sorts of skills in all sorts of spaces. And like, I've been really, really, really amazed. I mean, I actually met my CTO here in El Salvador. So I'm not a coder or a writer. I can build companies. I have an entrepreneurial background and all sorts of things. So I'm good at, getting things started, project managing, making it happen. But in terms of coding and that type of thing, that's not my thing. But there's heaps of people here that can do that. There's heaps of devs here available to you as well. There's lots of really great programs that are in place to encourage you to try and work with locals to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's the roadmap look like for you as far as where are you right now? Yeah. And then where do you see this going into the future? And what's the timeline look like?
Yeah. So, the timeline is with AI these days, it's actually insane how fast you can build stuff now. So we're building some of it with AI. We do have devs as well. And we hope to have the build complete within the next 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
We should be finished. Yeah.
That's
ready to go.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah. So we've already got a website launched. So it's www.BitTasker.com. So the website is launched. You can go on there. You can sign up, and you can sign up with either your NPUB, right? So we can collect your NIPO5 or your NPUB on Nostr, and you can enter our database that way, or you can put in your email and you can sign up with us that way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover here before we start closing it off?
No, not really. Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on here, telling us about BitTasker, giving your take on the geopolitical situation here in El Salvador. And it's going to be awesome to see that evolve. I really want to see, you know, the economy thrive over here. I want people to get more onboarded into Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem. And not only that, but like also get integrated into the ethos, because it could really transform and empower this country like nothing we've ever seen. And so I think BitTasker is going to have a big role in that, from what I can see, right? Especially with bringing in local Salvadorians on board.
That's the thing. Like, you'd be very, like, some of the Salvadorians here are so smart. They're really, really, I'm really amazed at how smart they are. And like when you actually get the, you know, as we all know how difficult it is orange pilling people. You can't do it in 5 minutes, but if you get them in a space where you can talk for an hour, they get it. And they'll go and buy some Bitcoin. But it's up to us to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a great discussion.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much, man. Awesome.
You got it.
All right.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Peace.
Thank you.